Hey, good day, everybody. I am Mark Ford, and welcome to Stream of Card Consciousness. As always, I'm joined by my friend, my brother up in the Panhandle, Greg Smith. How you doing today, Greg?
Doing well, Mark. Monday morning. It's a little cloudy outside. I'm ready to dive in with what we've got today. This seems like it's going to be fun. So I'm doing great. Hope everybody's doing good. You know, interesting weekend we all had here as a nation, and we don't have to talk about that a lot, but sombering times, and hopefully this will bring everybody together. So
Definitely.
how are you
Today
doing,
we're
Mark?
gonna.
What's going on
Yeah,
with
I'm
you?
good. I'm really excited. Have a good friend of mine, straight out of Alabama, Birmingham, the Birmingham area. Scott Adamson, tremendous writer. Wrote this amazing book called The Home Team. My Bromance with Off-Brand Football. It's a tremendous book about Birmingham football, the sports scene, fathers, sons, family, and I just want to have Scott on to talk a little bit about his experiences and just shoot the stream of consciousness with us. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing today?
Right on. Good.
Doing great, doing great. Yeah, I'm excited about this. This is going to be fun. I hope this goes well, and I think it will. And I'm curious to kind of pick Scott's brain a little bit about his experiences. So
yeah, first of all, the impetus for your book, Scott. What was your impetus to write the book?
Well, I started writing it. I'd retired from the newspaper business after about 30 years. And even during all that time, when I would go write, I would go in my fan cave. And my fan cave had so much stuff relating to old Birmingham football teams. I had mini helmets, programs, that kind of stuff. And it seems like I remembered so much about it. I might not could remember what I had for breakfast, but I could remember that the Birmingham Americans beat the Southern Cal Sun 11-7 on July 10, 1974. So I started thinking, there are probably a lot of people like me who've had experiences. You grow up, you're a kid, you become a fan of a team, and you follow that team. And especially in a place like Birmingham or Orlando or San Antonio, where these teams come and go. And I thought it might just be interesting to sort of recount that because I didn't have the luxury of growing up in a place like New York or Chicago where you had so many pro teams and they were always going to be there no matter what. So it was just kind of a different vibe when you had a team pop up out of nowhere and then boom, they're gone. And then another team would crop up and then they're gone. So I just thought this might make an interesting book in the sense of doing it from the standpoint of growing up with it, watching it and enjoying it, not so much about the X's and O's, but just how those teams made you feel. So I just kind of started writing it one day and thought, I'm going to do 1,000 words on this every day until I get through the last team. And I had actually finished it like 2 days before I found out that the Alliance of American Football was forming and Birmingham was going to have a team in it. And I thought, well, I guess I need to wait on this. So I did actually cover the first Birmingham Iron game, followed them through their 8 weeks before they folded. And then after they folded, I finished the book and then just started looking for a publisher. And luckily I found one in Burnaby Books and they turned it around pretty quickly. And I think it came out during the pandemic. So obviously there were no book signings, but it came out in 2021 and surprisingly it did a lot better than I thought it would. I mean, I thought it was going to be a very niche publication, but fortunately it reached a lot of people who I guess had similar experiences to me growing up with teams like this.
that's very cool. And you bring up Birmingham, as kind of a medium kind of market, never quite big enough. I'm from Orlando. Mark lives in Orlando. He's not from there, but I've always thought that maybe, Birmingham, I remember the USFL, they had the Stallions, and apparently the UFL team they have right now is very good. But you bring up a good point as far as not being quite big enough to have the permanency, the like the New Yorks or the Chicagos, but still have the love for the game. And for you to be able to recount all that, it makes me want to write one about Orlando, just recount all that. I think that's very interesting, because they're kind of a bigger mid-market that'll never probably have an NFL team, unfortunately. Same with Orlando. San Antonio. You know, just hearing you say that made me think about, I just I'm trying to find the right words to put this, that it's just an interesting experience. And definitely, I haven't read the book yet. I plan on it. I did some research about it though, so it seems like your love affair with that's very cool. And Mark, what's your thoughts? I mean, you've read it. What's
Yeah,
your
oh, it's
what's your
yeah, tremendous book. Again, so I'm going to urge everybody that watches our show and as a part of our Facebook page to pick it up to read it, because it transcends not just the sport. It fathers, sons, the commitment. How to earn a couple bucks to go to the game. I mean, Scott's dad is a hardworking guy like my dad. My earliest memory is going to Old War Memorial Stadium in Buffalo, on my dad's shoulder. Yeah, I've told this story before. I'm on my dad's shoulder going up this ramp in this decrepit old stadium, and he's got a pony keg on the other. And so there's similar, right? So pony keg on one, me on the other, going into the game, and I just felt like king of the world. So you could do things like that back then, and it's similar as in Scott's book. There's some stories about things you can't really do anymore, and it's just a different time and a different age, and that, from my perspective, it was more. It resonated with me, not the sport. Very informational. I love, learning about all the different teams, the 7 or 8 different teams that have been through Birmingham, similarly to like now in Orlando. So even though I had NFL football in Buffalo, it was more of that small town grassroots atmosphere. And obviously now it's turned into what it has. So my experience with Buffalo as a kid is similar to you in Orlando, Scott, and Birmingham, and then the thread of family that runs throughout it is what ties it all together. Fortunately, my dad, he's still alive. He's 90. I was just up there and saw him. So, and when we get together, what do we talk about? We talk about this game and that game and this time and this one and sitting in this blizzard and this catch. And so, that to me, that's how I just love the book. I mean, obviously, I'm biased. I think a lot of Scott because he was a huge supporter of our Unity FC women's soccer team, and he's a commander in Unity Army. But all that aside, it really is a tremendous book. Right.
Well, the whole Buffalo thing makes me jealous though, because the American Football League, that's what made me a football fan. I remember watching, and that's how I became, and I know Mark won't like
The
this, but that's
Jets,
how I
right?
became
Yeah.
a Jets fan. But I loved that league. I mean, there was just something about it when I was a little kid. It seemed like every time I'd watch a game on TV, it was played in the mud, and it's like the plays were drawn up, you know, just in the sand. I mean, it was just great. And that's what made me fall in love with football. I mean, that really was, the AFL, the NFL, I liked fine, but I'm old enough. I'm 63. So I grew up when there was an AFL and NFL. So the Jets were my favorite AFL team and my favorite overall team. And the LA Rams were my favorite NFL team because I like Roman Gabriel. There's no real, if you don't grow up in a market, you just, latch onto teams for whatever reason. And that was my scientific reason for liking the Rams, because I like Roman Gabriel.
Right? Yeah, I just missed the AFL myself. I know Mark, you probably don't remember a lot about it either, but everything I've ever read about the AFL, it was a lot more wide open than the NFL. The NFL was kind of boring back then, from what I've heard, and the AFL just kind of opened up a little bit more of an aerial game, and it seemed like it was just maybe a little more exciting football at the time. So, for you to be a Jets fan though, and me a Dolphins fan, and Mark's a Bills fan, that's interesting with the dichotomy here.
Well, I mean, I
Hey,
pay the price for being a Jets fan, so it's hard to keep reliving the '68 season, the '69 Super Bowl.
And just like you, Greg, I've sent Scott Jets memorabilia and stuff, so I've sent him some cards, and like I
Yeah,
send you Dolphin stuff, I'll send him some Jet stuff or whatever. I actually got some stuff I need to send to him. So but yeah, it doesn't matter. Cheer for who you cheer for. That's the beauty of life. Like again, like what's
right.
going on in the country right now. If we could all just, we can politely disagree, right? We don't have to all like the same things as long as we respect each other. And if you cheer for the Jets, the Dolphins, whoever, I think we could all agree though, we're not cheering for the Patriots.
No, Absolutely not. I'll be honest. I watched the Hard Knocks last year with the Jets. Did you see any of that, Scott?
I did not. You know, it's so weird that you would think something like that would be, a show I'd gravitate to, but I think I spent so long writing about sports and going to practices and covering it, I thought, yeah, I don't really want to watch the sausage being made anymore.
Right, right. Well, the only reason I bring that up is because my wife loves the guy who narrates it. His name's Liv Schreiber, and
Oh
she
yeah,
loves
he's
his
great.
voice. Yeah, she loves his voice, and she's like, "This is great," because she resists football, and we watched the Jets, and then for them to have that happen to them 4 plays into the season with Aaron Rodgers, I was kind of I wasn't upset is not the right word, but I was a little bit, after watching Hard Knocks, I was like, man, you got to be kidding me that this just happened. So, I feel for Jets fans, the point of that. And I want to get back to your experience though. Now, are you from Birmingham? Did you grow up there or did you where
I am. I've lived, well, I lived the first 45 years of my life in Birmingham. And I was
okay.
actually born in Alexander City, which is it's in Alabama, but my parents were living in Birmingham, but my mother was from Alexander City and she wanted me to be born where she was born. So I guess she went into labor and they drove to Alexander City, which is about an hour away. And I was born at that hospital and then we came back home to Birmingham. But yeah, that was, spent my first 45 years here. And then, that's where I, started to enjoy sports and learn about sports, watching, games with my dad on television and then, Alabama, Auburn, that sort of thing. So
Sure.
the thing about
Iron Bowl.
Alabama, there were no pro teams, but you had a pretty strong base of two college teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember Bear Bryant when I was a little kid was a mythical figure. He was a big deal. Now, so sports writer for 30 years. I asked you before the show if you'd mind if I asked you some questions about that. Now, how did you did that in college, obviously. Now, how did you get what was your experience, coming up through college and doing that? And then how did you strike out and get the ability to get your foot in the door, I guess, for lack of a better way to ask it. What
Yeah,
got your foot in the door with writing?
well, it's one of those things I'd always enjoyed writing, even when I was a kid. Which this shows what a goob I was. I would be watching a game on TV and I would just write things about it. I would like sort of create a little story. And then when I got to high school, I worked for the school paper and wrote sports, and then got to college, got to be sports editor. And then after that, basically you just, this was old school. This where you actually had clippings of stories that you'd done. So I'd do
Mhm.
that, do a resume, and I would just send them out pretty much everywhere, just hoping you'd get a bite. And finally, I got out of college. I went to Bluto-Blutarski plan. So I got out of college after about 6 years. And then 2 years after
Yeah.
that, I finally got a call back from this place in Talladega, Alabama, where the racetrack is, called the Daily Home. And that was my first job. And I started working there in 87. And then, that's what got my foot in the door. And that was a place that it was a small town paper, but I really enjoyed working there. So I worked there for a lot of years. And
Mhm.
that led to the Birmingham Post-Herald, which is a newspaper that no longer exists. And went to a couple other places and finished in the upstate of South Carolina. I spent the last, I guess, 15 years of my writing career in South Carolina before my wife and I moved back to Birmingham about 3 years ago. But
Okay.
I'm sure it's changed now, but just back in the day, if you majored in journalism or you had some kind of background in writing, you just basically had to send out resumes and send out clips and just hope that it got to a
Yeah.
place that not only liked what you did, but had an opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that my advisor in college told me was just go to some sports games and write about them. Go to some high school basketball games or do that, and you know, write your write ups. Do it for free and send them out, like you said. And I've always kind of wondered what my life would have been like if I'd have chosen that path, because that was what I wanted to do from when I can remember, and to be able to talk to somebody who actually did that for a career, it's fascinating to me. I'm really glad that I got to ask you that this morning, because I haven't thought about doing that path in a long time. And you're right. I think it's completely different now. So, for you to be able to get in there when you had that kind of experience, I think is pretty amazing. So, Mark, what's your thoughts? I mean, what?
Yeah, it's good. I wanted to. It's a good topic. Our last show we said is, where will the next great like sports novel come from? For me, like baseball literature is tremendous. Some of the finest writing. I my first book I read was Ted Williams' story. It's fabulous. It's a biography. But you look at like Teammates, David Halberstam book. Voices of the Game. We Played the Game. Boys of Summer is not PC. It's kind of dated. But I mean, you look at some of the great lit, and it's been sport books. I was curious, like what you felt, Scott, about like the landscape today with the oversaturation of media. There's not really that mystique or mystery about people or teams or sport. I mean, are we going to ever see that level of literature again?
I'm really, I hate to sound negative, but I'm not sure we will. I mean, now everything is so immediate. I mean, it's like, if there's a sporting event going on, back in the day, like when I first started working in a newspaper, the goal for us was to be as current as the 10 o'clock or the 11 o'clock news the night before. So that was back when you would still have a game story because there were people who, I mean, they might know the score, but they didn't know details. But in this
Mhm.
day and age, at virtually any level, minor league baseball, whatever, you know everything that's going on the exact second it happens. So when a game
Mhm.
ends, you've got to, when you do a story, you've got to realize that if there's someone who is interested in that game, they pretty much already know what happened. I mean, so I know I had to sort of alter like stuff I've done for my website. I kind of altered it a little bit because you don't really need to go into all the stats and details because again, they're already there. Somebody can, look at their phone and see every piece of statistics available. You just have to, or the way I try to approach it is tell them what they already know, but try to present it in an entertaining way. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But even me, I noticed my attention span is not what it used to be. I used to sit and love to read novels and sit with a physical newspaper and read through it. But now I'm just so used to getting things on the quick. I just want to get it and then, move on to something else. So I think in a lot of ways it is, if you're looking at a great sports novel, I think that's pretty much a lost art now.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I'm wrong.
But
It just seems
being
that
a
way.
being an English teacher and an avid reader, and I've still love to hunt for books. We were telling that story on one of the other shows, and yeah, it's just for me, it's kind of sad. They don't even teach creative writing or journalism or in school anymore. The curriculum's all dictated by the computer, and I get my kids creative. I'm kind of a rebel. I have banned books in my room too, so I wanted To Kill a Mockingbird. But
Yes.
yeah, it's just that creativity. And I tell the kids, write your story. And I don't care about your punctuation or your profanity or any of that. Just write your story. And I learn about them. So we learn about things. And everything's just kind of generic today, really, in my view. Yeah, I agree with you, Scott. I don't think that we're going to see any great novels. And it's like your book, it's a great book because it transcends the sport. It's not just about football. And you write about things that I'm fascinated with because my dream as a kid was to own a minor league baseball team. I own a minor league soccer team, women's soccer team. So I got close. I mean, I'm in the area code. So minor league sports has always fascinated me. And like minor league hockey, minor league baseball. I think those stories are better than people that are in the major leagues or that make the show. But then also, I saw. Can you talk to us a little bit about your Rickwood Field experience? The people that watch the show or on our page, they'll love to know a little bit about your experience at Rickwood Field here a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they had a minor league game on Tuesday, which is the one I went to, and then the major league game was on Thursday. And tickets to the minor league game were $30 and the major league game was 300. So I decided I would go to the minor league game. But it was great to just get back there because they did a fantastic job with the field in terms of making it, what was required by Major League Baseball, and MLB made them do it. They said you got to redo the dugout, you got to make the field a certain way. But the stadium still had that character. I think I mentioned it still had rust and dust like it always had. And it was, even when I went as a kid, it seemed old. Well, it was old. I mean, it's the oldest, baseball park in America now. But it just has so many great memories for me because weirdly enough, the first time I ever went to Rickwood Field, I believe it was 1971 maybe, and I was playing in a little league football game. I'd
Wow.
never seen a baseball game there before, but we played at Rickwood Field, which at the time meant nothing to me. And then as the years passed and I learned about the history of Rickwood Field, with the Black Barons, the Barons, just everything that had gone on there. Yeah, I remember one day I just woke up and thought, I played on the same field that Satchel Paige played on. That made me feel pretty cool there for a minute. And that just going back for this minor league game at Rickwood, it just brought back so many memories of the games I went through with my dad and my brother. And there was a period when the Barons, they were gone for several years and they returned to Birmingham, I think in 81. And I was just a regular there. There was one season where I think I only missed like maybe 4 home games. I mean, I was just an absolute stadium rat that whole year. So just going
Oh,
back and seeing that minor league game, it just really, really brought back everything. I mean, you could look, in the stands and remember where you sat and remember where you had your hot dog. And it was just it was a lot more of an emotional experience than I thought it would be. I knew it would be cool, but it's
yeah.
just I just kind of walked in and it's like, oh man, I'm getting kind of verklempt here for a minute. So it was fantastic. I couldn't even tell you what the final score of the game was because that didn't matter. To me, it was just the experience of being there, being among the crowd, and then they kind of turned it into a bit of a museum with all these displays from the Negro Leagues. And it was fantastic. That's one of my favorite even years from now, when I look back at some of my favorite sports memories, that's going to be right there near the top.
That's amazing. And, I don't live very far from Birmingham. So I'm 4 hours away. So I need to get up there and do that at some point because it seems like that's going to be a thing now,
Well, the great
where
thing
they,
about Rickwood, it's a public park. I mean, you can literally just drive to Rickwood Field and walk inside on day. There's some days when it's just open and they have like a little small museum in there. And I've
yeah,
I've done that occasionally, just like it'll be a summer morning and I think, yeah, I'm gonna go to Rickwood. And you just drive there and just kind of walk around. I mean, it's incredible.
that's
It's
cool.
like you have your own private tour of history.
Well, all right, Craig, I'm gonna
Yeah,
drive up
it's,
to you. I'll
go
drive to
ahead, Mark.
you. I'll drive to you. We go from you to, and we'll meet up with Scott, and we'll go to Rickwood. So,
Let's do it. Let's absolutely do it. That'd be
I-
great.
I'm, I'm, I'm literally on the way. So if you want to
yeah,
ever do that, Mark,
definitely.
you stop and I'll meet you at I-10 and we'll go.
I'll fill the truck with Squincher and UFC memorabilia for Scott, and drop him off a bunch of Squincher.
That's
That's
funny.
what I need. I
So
need to buy a
Scott,
game jersey from you. I've got the T-shirt
Yeah,
here. I
well,
need
I'll
a
send you.
T-shirt
I
again.
guess your money's no good with me, brother. I'll no man, that's whatever. I'll send you a jersey. We have the closets full. So your wife too. She's what size is your wife?
She's tiny. She's like
Yeah, small, right?
5 foot 90 pounds.
If
So
I remember. Yeah, I got a couple jerseys for you. Don't you worry about that. We're gonna take care of you.
so so Scott, does Birmingham still have a minor league team and do like a baseball team and do they play at Rickwood or is Rick?
well, yeah. I mean, they've got the Birmingham Barons, which are they're still around and they're in the Southern League.
Yeah.
There's a new stadium. It's called Regions Field, which is a beautiful new stadium that they built in another part of the city.
Hmm.
And that's where they play most of their games. They do have, and they're going to start back now that they've redone Rickwood. They have what's called a Rickwood Classic, where they have one game a year and the teams wear throwback uniforms and they represent like a certain era or year in Barron's history. But yeah, they moved
Sure.
into a really nice facility in downtown Birmingham. But yeah,
Okay.
we had the Birmingham A's for a while and then they went out of business and the Barons came back in I guess 1981. So we've had minor league baseball now continuously for over 40 years.
So when Jordan was with Birmingham, Michael Jordan, did they play at Rickwood?
No, at the time they played on the outskirts of Birmingham at Hoover Metropolitan Stadium, where the SEC
Okay.
baseball tournament is. And yeah,
Yeah.
that was funny because that you would have huge crowds every night to see Michael Jordan come up and strike out. And then when his
Right.
cycle was completed and you knew he wasn't going to come to bat anymore, there'd be this mass exodus from the stadium. So I'd
Yeah.
be sitting there with like 200 other people because we knew that, everybody else knew that Jordan wasn't going to, he wasn't going to bat anymore. But we're thinking, well, I'm just kind of here to watch baseball. That's nice that he's playing on the team, but
Hey, now he hit 202, so I mean that's respectable.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, crazy.
He hit the Mendoza line. This has been really cool. So some of the stuff you have behind you, what you got? You got a Bulls pennant, a Birmingham Bulls. Is that what that is?
Yeah, I could actually do a panoramic stuff. I've got like football football on two sides. I got like NFL stuff and some of the stuff that Mark sent me, some of my Jets cards. But what's behind me right now basically is soccer and hockey. I try to devote a wall to a different sport. So
right. I need to get my wife on board with that, the wall for each sport. So
well,
Mark,
I used to really connect programs was the thing I collected. I never, strangely enough, for whatever reason, I never got that much into cards, but anytime I went to a sporting event, I wanted a program.
Exactly.
And that's another thing that kind of getting back to the way things are now, now if you go to a sporting event, if there's a program, it's
that's how you learn about the game, though, because you didn't have the internet, you didn't have everything on your phone, and everybody's nose is buried in their phone. So my dad, so I didn't miss a Bills game for 38 years till we moved here, and then I still go to 3-4 games a year. My dad, he'd look at me like, "Are you having a good time?" I'd have my nose buried in the program. Dad, I'm having a great time, but I was learning. I was reading the stats, and I was learning about the players. And he's like, but then that was like when I was
Absolutely.
6, 7, 8 years old, and he'd take me in the game and he'd be like, "Are you having fun? You want to go?" I'm like, "No, Dad, I'm having a great time." Yeah, hanging out with my dad, but I was learning, and I would read the program from cover to cover. And then about the time I was like 10 or 11, now I'm like, yoo-hoo, now I knew the game and I'm into it and I'm cheering and I knew the game. And then one day it was, just before we moved to Florida, me and my dad go to the game. We go to buy the program. Want no program.
Yeah,
I
you
was
hold
like,
your phone in front of a barcode, and that's how you get
right.
your
And I'm
program.
like, well, it had gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And then it was like 2008, I want to say, 2009. We go, Scott, it was like ritual, man. We had our thing. We parked where we parked. We had breakfast here. We walked to the stadium. We got the program. We sat down. No, so like the whole thing was just like we didn't know what to do. I was like, "Where's my program?" There's no program. So yeah, and then people
Yeah,
are
same here. Programs to me were like holy relics. We would buy
Yes.
one going
everybody's
into the
like,
stadium, and then I would just, make
got
sure,
my face in my
where am I going
phone
to
the
put
whole
it while I
game.
watch the game?
Yeah, get into the game.
But
I
yeah,
mean, that's
I
the
miss
thing.
those days because I love
Yeah, man.
programs.
Watch the game. Watch the concert. How about people that go to concerts and say, "Oh, I'm going to film the whole thing." I'll take a couple pictures and that's it. Just a couple pictures and I'll watch the show. I don't want to. Oh, that's stupid.
You guys are absolutely spot on with the programs because when I'd go to Dolphins games or I go to, Red Sox games or whatever, you go to even the spring training games had a program. So I'd get a program and a batting helmet. That was my deal. I wanted a program and a batting helmet. And I'd read it and I'd keep score, at the baseball games and do all that. And the game day programs, I think it was called Game Day.
Game
and
day, yeah. Or pro or game day, yeah.
Yeah, pro game day. Absolutely. Yeah. And you get those and I would read the same thing. I'd read it cover to cover. It was great. And
then you go to school, right? You go to school the next day and you'd show all your buddies, look where I was yesterday. I was at the game, man. And they'd be like, "You didn't go to the game for it. You're full of shit." I'm like, no, I'm not. Look at this, baby. I was at the game. So it was like getting the concert t-shirt, right? You had to have the program.
Yeah, you bring the program with you for a week.
Right. We couldn't document we were at the game other than the ticket stub and the program. So then they were like, "Oh, wow, I guess you were at the game." You
could take pictures, but it'd take you a week to have the pictures. Yeah.
You go to the photo booth in the parking lot at the Plaza.
So Scott, I have to ask you. You know, you've told me why you're a Jets fan. So do you go to any NFL games now, or do you just kind of stick with the Birmingham scene?
Well, yeah, I mean, since I'm in Birmingham, I basically just watch on TV.
Yeah.
When I lived and worked in South Carolina, I actually covered the Carolina Panthers for several years. So that was fun, just because, I never dreamed. Well, when I grew up in Birmingham, I had no idea where, life was going to take me in terms of living to another place or moving to another place. But I had such a background in covering college football, I just never dreamed I would be in a situation where I could cover the NFL. But that happened when I was in South Carolina. So yeah, I covered the Carolina Panthers for a few years. Got to see them beat the Patriots in a Monday Night Football game one time, so that was kind of cool.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
yeah, now mostly I just watch on TV.
Outstanding.
It's funny. I was thinking back to something you were saying earlier about how you have a 10 o'clock deadline when you were writing, and I can remember vividly. I'm a Red Sox fan, and whenever they would go out west, I wouldn't know who won the game until the day after,
Right.
because the box score wouldn't be there, so you wouldn't see it the next day, but then you'd see it the day after, and I wouldn't know what happened, before Sports Center and before all that. So it's so interesting to think how much different the landscape is now. And for you to have been able to do that for so long is a blessing, I think, and I'm sure you've got a lifetime worth of stories to tell, just from your career. So I commend you for that. And I think that's very cool. So, Mark and I have talked a lot about literature and things like that. And I'm definitely going to have to get your book, because I love reading sports books, and I need to devote more time myself personally to having the attention span to be able to read again, because I've got a shelf full of books, shelves and shelves full of them, that I don't ever read anymore. So I need to think about that and get back to doing that. So
Yeah, I have to catch
that's what I
myself
think.
now. I just have to put down the phone. I mean, because it's just
Yeah,
so easy to constantly be distracted. And it's like yesterday with the Euro final, I thought, I'm just going to put the damn phone down and just watch this match. And I couldn't believe
right.
how good that felt, to actually go 90 minutes plus injury time to just watch and enjoy a match and not have to look at somebody's hot take, online
Yeah,
or something.
yeah. Yeah, I find myself doing that during Dolphins games sometimes too. Mark, are you still there? Did we lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm just listening. I know I'm a
Okay.
little just hey man, just enjoying the conversation. Mark's here. So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean,
we don't want to. I didn't want to. I just don't know how much time Scott has. I don't want to step on it, or.
right,
So
right. Well, yeah, Scott, this has been great. It's every time we've had a guest, it's been fun for different reasons, and this kind of hits me more a little bit than some of the others, just based on your life experience and me being able to kind of, you know, I don't know if living vicariously through that, because I just met you, but it's just cool to hear those stories and how you got into it, and kind of sounds like the path I would have had to have taken if I'd decided to do it. So, I'm gonna where can we get your book?
yeah, here's the book.
That's
Yeah, the
It
home team.
Yeah, it's pretty much just you can go to my website and there's a link to Amazon, and that's really the best way to get it.
okay.
It's
Yeah, I'll
What's
put
the
it in the show
website?
notes. Yeah,
Okay, okay,
I'll put it in the show
all right.
notes. I'll put a link in the show notes to the show where you can get Scott's material and Adamson Media, right? And
That's it.
Facebook, website. He's a great writer. And then again, just personally, Scott, before we go, I just want to thank you. Um, you've been a great friend and a great supporter of our soccer team. So I get a little emotional talking about it. That soccer team meant so much to us. We're not done, but we're kind of in that holding pattern. Are we going to keep going? Or are we not? Because the landscape changes, right? Everything
Right.
changes. Money, 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 money.
I
And
hope you do, though. I hope you do, because
yeah, but yeah, I can't thank you enough because you are such a supporter, always there for us, always telling our story. You and me also have you were ready to go to bat for me with a thing with the league too, and that was I'll never forget that you were willing to put yourself out there for me, with some things that went down behind the scenes, and you're a tremendous writer, and again, everybody the home team. I can't recommend it enough. In addition to all of Scott's other work that we will put in the show page links, his other writing, his fiction, his sports, just in general. funny too. Scott's a funny guy, man. He's a funny guy. And but I love you, brother. I know we've only met through these things, and but I can't thank you enough for joining us today, Scott. And I love you, man.
I love you. You love you guys too. It's so nice to meet you, Greg. I mean, this has been great. This has been the most fun I've had in a while.
Well, absolutely. Me too. Me too. This is neat. This is very cool. You know, you say at this point, I'm going to get that book, and stop going, but I'm looking on the way, so I'm doing together some.
We would mind. You guys, I'll make it worth your while.
I've got some friends up there too. I wouldn't mind seeing. So that maybe kill two birds with one stone kind of thing. So this has been great. I agree, and it's nice meeting you as well, Scott. So Mark, you got any final thoughts before we?
Again, everybody love everybody. We could be better. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it greatly. Thank you, Greg. We'll get this up today, and I really look forward to seeing this out there on YouTube, and so everybody can, get a little broader view of who we are and what we do. So thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.